Finding our way as people of faith isn't easy. Signs of God's presence guide the journey of the faithful. Cherished symbols of our faith are passed down through the ages. By these symbols, we know one another. With these symbols, we mark the presence of the living God. Praise be to God, who lives and moves among us.
Amen.
God, we watch and wait for you. In the darkness, we strain our eyes to see your light and our ears to hear your voice. Your guidance reassures and strengthens us. As a community of believers, together we search for you and celebrate your obvious and clear presence in our midst. Soothe our minds and bodies, slow our frenzied pace, so that we might discover your plans for us. Use our lives as a sign of your presence and love for this world. Amen. You deal faithfully with the faithful. You show integrity toward the one who has integrity. You are pure towards the pure, but toward the crooked, you are tricky. You are the one who saves people who suffer, but your eyes are against the proud. You bring them down. You are my lamp, Lord. The Lord illumines my darkness. With you I can charge into battle. With my God I can leap over a wall. God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word is tried and true. He is a shield for all who take refuge in him.
We have just one symbol again this week, the lamp. Lamps appear all through the scriptures. That tells us just how popular and pervasive a symbol it is. And it also tells us just how typical lamps would have been. Right as we start, I think we need to do a little perspective shifting and mind expanding and remember, when did people start getting electric light in homes and buildings? The 1880s and the early 20th century. One statistic says that in 1925, only half of U.S. homes were lit by electric light. So it's helpful to remember, as we consider the lamp as our symbol this week, that for millennia, most of human existence, people lived in a world illuminated only by some form of fire. From cavemen to 1880, fire was the only light other than the sun. So a lamp, a vital, powerful symbol for God's people. It's really the epitome of biblical symbols. It's something from everyday life that people also saw as a sign of something more spiritual, more divine. And that's exactly what we've been talking about these last few weeks. That's what makes them so interesting spiritually, that we can see something of God in everyday things. As we said in our introduction, any symbol that holds meaning for God's people is fair game for becoming a meaningful symbol of our faith. These signs and symbols are part of our faith. They're a visual language that increases the vocabulary of our faith because God cannot ever be fully expressed in human language. No human words or concepts can ever completely capture or fully describe God. But signs, symbols, and images seem to have more power than words. And that itself is a gift from God about God. On to the lamp. A concordance, remember those, or a Google search, can tell you how many times exactly lamps are mentioned in the Bible. And the exact number isn't the most important thing to mention, though. The consistency is. And it consistently is an image of hope. It's the image. Other images are part of it too. God said, "Let there be light," and creation was visible. Jesus says, "I am the light of the world," and good news comes into the world again. These are all connected with the same symbolic root. There's the story about the 10 overly enthusiastic young ladies and their lamps as told by Jesus. There are the apocalyptic lampstands of Revelation. There's the old Amy Grant song, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path," Psalm 119, of course. And there's the old Sunday school church camp song, and there's even a Veggie Tales of it. If you want to look that up, "Give me oil in my lamp." Now that I've mentioned that, you'll probably start singing it in your head. So we don't have time to cover every possible instance of lamps and light and all of their significance in the Bible. Or do we? How much time do you have? So we'll talk about how it was understood by ancient Christians and what we can still value from their beloved, ubiquitous symbol today. And for us, it's good to remember all of these pieces of background because we sometimes take light for granted. It comes to us as easily as flipping a switch. And remember what I said about how we don't really think about light and lamps now that we have electricity everywhere, except maybe your deer camp, and even there's all kinds of battery, generator, and solar options. We come to church and someone has turned on the lights. We leave church and someone will turn out the lights. And unless they forget, we get a call at 11 p.m. that someone left a light on, but that's a whole different kind of situation. In ancient worship services, the light and its entrance into the worship space was a part of the worship itself. It was practical and symbolic. Bringing in the light, lighting oil lamps, meant that the light of the world was shining on them gathered there. Every beginning of a church service was a symbolic representation of Jesus Christ coming into the world. And we still have acolytes today. And they are entirely symbolic and ornamental for the same reason, even if we never really thought about it. So, thank you, Richard Arnold, for bringing the light of Christ into our gathering each week in person at First Campus. You're doing that exact thing. In our book for the series by Mike Aquilina, we learned that one of the earliest hymns recorded is one, it's not even in our old hymnal, it's that old. It's in Greek, and it's called the Phos Hilaron, meaning the hymn for the lighting of the lamps. For St. Gregory, in the 6th century, the real-life practical lamps in worship, and lamps that would have been used in any indoor space for that matter, were also a symbol of the good works we take with us to judgment. He said, "The lamps that you kindle are a sacrament of the illumination there in heaven, with which we shall meet the bridegroom, we shining and virgin souls, with the lamps of our faith shining." There's a lot of symbology happening here with Gregory. Bridegroom is a symbolic name for Jesus, of course, and Gregory was a monk, so all the other issues wrapped up in that quote might make more sense when you know that. And if not to worry, enough said, moving on. It might be good to talk about the lamps themselves at this point, so we're clear on exactly what these lamps would have been. So not tiki torches, and not like Coleman lanterns. These would be oil lamps made out of ceramic or metal. And lamps from Mediterranean cultures in these times would kind of look like a slipper sort of shape. Think Aladdin. And the fuel for them would have been olive oil with a wick. It's an interesting side note that in Persia, however, lamps were filled with petroleum, this strange substance that bubbled up from the ground in places, and it wasn't used or thought of as good for much else until much more recently in history, when the world ran not on open flames, but internal combustion engines, and Iran, as Persia is now known, still controls 25% of the Middle East oil production. Some lamps themselves would have been highly decorated and would be shaped like or carved with other symbols. Carved in or painted on would be things like sheaves of wheat, grapevines, we talked about them last week, the fish, boats, a Chi Rho, what looks like a letter P and an X at the same time, or a cross, a Greek cross, which is like a plus sign, not a Latin cross like this. Or the whole lamp would be a dolphin, a fish, or a boat. That would be like a symbol sandwich, a symbol on a symbol, a mystery wrapped in an enigma, as Winston Churchill once said, although he was not talking about ancient Christian lamps. One of the most popular early Christian tourist attractions was visiting tombs. I'm being serious now. I don't mean in a Halloween haunted house kind of way, but to visit the burial places of saints and martyrs, like in famous landmark churches, Jerusalem, Alexandria, Constantinople, or Rome, and in the catacombs too. Often these burial chambers were the usual burial chambers, but they sometimes had the It was the burial, the resting place of a very well-known, revered, saintly person. And so people would visit them, which may or may not have been creepy, but they were definitely dark underground, so you took a lamp with you. Or there were little lamps in alcoves along the hallways. And as a bonus, if you went to one of those holy places to honor, say, St. Atticus of Constantinople, you would collect a small vial of oil from one of these lamps, and the oil was thought to have all sorts of miraculous powers, to heal you if you were sick, to make your own oil last a long time if you mixed it in, that sort of thing. And in case you're curious about the last saint I mentioned, he's kind of obscure, not one of the most famous saints like Paul, Christopher, or Patrick. Atticus was said at the time to be of mediocre talent, but he was apparently a very faithful church administrator and helpful in condemning various heretics like his rival, the Archbishop St. John Chrysostom, who, judged by history, was not a heretic at all, but a good and humble, faithful church leader. If you think there's politics in church today, back then it was life or death stuff. It was off with your head, or at least banishment and exile. Whenever we think we live in some sort of ultimate bad time in history, that things have never been as bad as they are now, think again. Things now are probably better than they've ever been. No one is chopping off our heads if we don't sing a certain hymn in a certain language. No one is storming the gates of our city because we cross ourselves from the left and they cross themselves on the right. Remember the light. Remember not to take it for granted, which we do all the time without thinking. Remember that to our ancestors in faith, the very light of a lamp was a statement of faith. The medium is the message. As our author says, the symbol is its meaning, and the importance of it is the thing itself. It's pretty cool that this symbol works on so many levels, but of course it does. It's an indispensable thing. Without light, where would we be? It's a basic and foundational thing, light. What did God make first in Genesis? Light itself. Parting thoughts about lamps and light from Jesus. First, from him, about him. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Second, about us, we who follow him. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before all people, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. Friends, let the light of God's love shine on everything and everyone this week. Let your words and deeds be a living symbol of God's grace and mercy. Amen. We hope you're enjoying Podchurch. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and be notified each time there's a new video. Be sure to check out our Facebook page for up-to-date information as well as our weekly newsletter. Feel free to say hello on Facebook Messenger or use our email address and let us know how you're enjoying Podchurch. Go in peace, go with joy. Let God's light shine through you onto the world this week. Amen. Podchurch is the weekly online worship of Marquette Hope, a United Methodist faith community located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Find us at facebook.com/mqthope, mqthope.com, and on YouTube.